You're living a Disney villain arc right now, you just don't know which level. Every person exists somewhere on the power spectrum, pure survival like a henchman, or controlling entire worlds like Maleficent. The terrifying part? Your real-world failures, your relationships, even your career trajectory all follow the exact same pattern as these fictional villains. And once you see it, you can't unsee it. So, which villain are you? Level 1. The Henchman, Pain and Panic. Think Pain and Panic from Hercules. This isn't just cartoon analysis, and these two demons represent about 80% of the working population. Henchmen live in constant fear of their boss. They spend all their energy trying not to get fired rather than actually succeeding at anything. Sound familiar? The henchman mindset is pure survival mode. They take orders without questioning them, even when those orders make no sense. They panic when things go wrong instead of problem solving. And they blame external circumstances for their failures. Watch Pain and Panic try to kill baby Hercules. They had one job, give him a potion to make him mortal, then kill him. Simple plan. But they panic, get distracted, mess up the timing, and literally create their own worst enemy. This is level 1 thinking. No long-term strategy, no backup plans, just panic when something goes slightly wrong. In real life, these are the people who show up late, make excuses constantly, and never take ownership of results. They're always reactive, never proactive. They wait for instructions instead of taking initiative. But here's the brilliant psychology Disney shows us about what keeps people trapped here. They are so focused on avoiding immediate punishment that they never develop actual competence. They're managing their boss's mood instead of managing results. People think success means keeping authority figures happy in the moment. They don't realize that long-term success requires disappointing people in the short term to get better results. Level 2. The Specialist, Kronk. Meet Kronk from The Emperor's New Groove. He's Yzma's henchman, but he's completely different from Pain and Panic. Kronk is incredibly competent at specific tasks. Level 2 people are the specialists. They're amazing at their craft, but terrible at politics and strategy. Kronk can cook a 5-star meal, speak to squirrels, and has the strength of 10 men. But he can't see the bigger picture to save his life. Look at the dynamic. Yzma is frail, chaotic, and completely reliant on him. Kronk is a literal powerhouse. Yet Yzma holds all the cards because she controls the agenda. This is the tragic paradox of the Level 2 specialist. They are the engine that makes the entire machine run, but they have absolutely no hands on the steering wheel. In the real world, these are your master programmers who can't manage a team, your brilliant researchers who can't present their findings, your incredible artists who can't market their work. The Level 2 trap is thinking that competence equals power. Kronk assumes that because he's useful, he's valuable, but he has zero independent judgment. They fall into the delusion of a pure meritocracy. They truly believe that if they just work harder, write cleaner code, or bake better spinach puffs, the system will naturally reward them with authority. But the system actively works against them. Organizations love Level 2s. They will praise you, hand you awards, and give you minor raises to keep you exactly where you are. Because if they promote their best producer, they lose their best producer. Your sheer competence becomes the very cage that traps you. Watch Kronk throughout the movie. He's loyal, hardworking, and talented. But he never questions whether Yzma's plans make sense. He just executes them perfectly, even when they're obviously insane. And because Level 2s never challenge the premise of a task, they end up flawlessly executing terrible ideas, spending months perfecting a project that is destined to fail, simply because a boss told them to. This is the classic high performer who never gets promoted. They're so good at following instructions that nobody trusts them to give instructions. Level 2s often resent Level 3s and above because they think they're more competent, and they're usually right about the competence part, but they're missing the political intelligence that actually drives advancement. The way out of Level 2 is developing independent judgment. Notice that Kronk only becomes truly powerful when he starts making his own moral decisions instead of just following orders. Remember the iconic scenes with the angel and devil on his shoulders? That is literally the visualization of a Level 2 developing strategic autonomy. He stops asking, "How do I do this perfectly?" and finally starts asking, "Should I be doing this at all?" But most Level 2s never make this leap. They stay comfortable being the best at their specific role, never realizing that mastery without autonomy is just expensive labor. Level 3. The Lieutenant, Scar. Now we're getting interesting. Scar from The Lion King represents Level 3. The person who understands power but doesn't have it yet. Level 3s are dangerous because they're smart enough to see how the system works, but not powerful enough to change it directly. They are trapped in the most agonizing position on the board. They are painfully aware of their own intelligence, forced to watch level 4s and 5s make decisions they genuinely believe they could execute better. This breeds a deep, venomous resentment. So, they work through manipulation, alliances, and long-term schemes. These are your ambitious middle managers, your rising political operatives, your startup founders who haven't made it yet. They understand that success requires more than just competence. Scar knows he can't beat Mufasa in direct combat, so he plays a longer game. He builds an army of outcasts, manipulates the air, and waits for the perfect opportunity. He leverages the hyena's starvation and grievances to build a loyal coalition. In the corporate world, this is the manager who weaponizes office gossip, creating a toxic us versus them culture to secure their own base of support. They don't inspire, they radicalize. They whisper in the ears of the naive, like Simba, using other people as pawns on a chessboard they desperately want to control. This is where most people get stuck if they're ambitious. They see the political game, but they approach it like Scar, with resentment, shortcuts, and zero-sum thinking. Watch what happens when Scar actually gets power. The Pride Lands turn into a wasteland because Scar was so focused on getting power that he never learned how to use it constructively. The moment a level 3 finally takes the throne, the illusion shatters. They suddenly realize that managing an empire is entirely different from overthrowing one. Scar sits on Pride Rock, surrounded by starving hyenas complaining about the lack of food, and his only response is anger because he has no actual vision. He spent his entire life studying how to steal the crown, but spent absolutely 0 hours studying how to govern. Level 3s often have a fundamental misunderstanding about power. They think it's about defeating enemies rather than building something valuable. The Level 3 trap is thinking that politics is everything. Scar is a master manipulator, but he's a terrible leader. He can acquire power but can't maintain it because he never built anything worth maintaining. The difference between Level 3 and Level 4 isn't just having more power, it's understanding that sustainable power comes from creating value, not just capturing it. Level 4, the architect, Jafar. Jafar from Aladdin represents Level 4. Someone who doesn't just want power, but wants to redesign the entire system. Level 4s are architects of change. They don't just climb existing hierarchies, they create new ones. Jafar isn't content being the Sultan's advisor. He wants to remake Agrabah entirely. Contrast him with a Level 3 like Scar. Scar wanted to sit on the existing throne. Jafar looks at the throne and thinks the entire concept of the monarchy is a joke. He realizes that whoever writes the rules always wins, so he stops playing the game and starts rewriting the rulebook entirely. He isn't wasting time trying to win over the populace. He's literally hypnotizing the leadership. In the real world, these are the people who don't just succeed within existing systems. They build new systems. Your Elon Musks, your Steve Jobs, your political revolutionaries. This is the visionary who doesn't just launch a slightly better taxi company. They invent ride-sharing to completely dismantle and rebuild the transportation infrastructure. Watch how Jafar approaches problems. He doesn't just rely on political manipulation like Scar. He acquires new capabilities, magic, artifacts, supernatural power. In the modern landscape, magic is disruptive technology. It's proprietary algorithms, massive capital reserves, or an unassailable monopoly. Jafar's relentless search for the Cave of Wonders is the ultimate venture capital hunt for an asymmetrical advantage. He knows that raw intellect isn't enough. You need leverage that makes you completely untouchable. Level 4s understand that lasting power requires building something bigger than yourself. Jafar doesn't want to rule the existing kingdom. He wants cosmic power to reshape reality. But here's the Level 4 trap. They become so obsessed with acquiring power that they lose sight of what they wanted the power for in the first place. Jafar gets everything he wanted, unlimited power, but he also gets imprisoned in a lamp for eternity. Power without wisdom creates its own prison. Think about what the lamp actually represents in reality. It is the ultimate gilded cage. It's the founder who builds a billion-dollar empire but can't sleep for a single night because the market demands infinite growth. It's the visionary whose identity is completely swallowed by their creation. Aladdin outsmarts Jafar not by overpowering him, but by weaponizing Jafar's own boundless ego against him, tricking him into accepting absolute cosmic power that comes with absolute restriction, phenomenal cosmic powers, itty-bitty living space. Level 4s often sacrifice relationships, values, and peace of mind for capabilities and influence. They win the game, but lose themselves in the process. The challenge at Level 4 isn't acquiring power, it's staying human while you have it. Level 5. The Force of Nature. Maleficent. Maleficent represents Level 5, someone who has transcended normal human limitations and become a force of nature. Level 5s don't scheme or manipulate because they don't need to. They simply decree what will happen, and reality bends to accommodate them. The people who don't follow trends, they create them. These are the apex predators of society, the institutional leaders who can crash global markets with a vague sentence, or cultural icons who can bankrupt a corporation just by casually mentioning they don't use its products anymore. They have completely bypassed the standard rules of competition. Watch Maleficent's approach to conflict. She doesn't gather armies or build elaborate traps. She just shows up and imposes her will through sheer force of presence. But look closely at why she attacks. She curses baby Aurora not to steal the throne, capture resources, or secure a tactical advantage. She does it purely because she wasn't invited to a party. This highlights the terrifying reality of level 5 stakes. When you have absolutely nothing left to build or conquer, your ego becomes your only compass. You start launching nuclear strikes over minor, perceived slights because you have lost all sense of proportion. But level 5 comes with a terrible cost: isolation. Maleficent is so far beyond normal human experience that she can't relate to anyone. Level 5s often become prisoners of their own success. They're so powerful that nobody can challenge them, which means nobody can help them grow. They live in a permanent golden echo chamber. Every level 1 henchman and level 3 lieutenant in their orbit is far too terrified to ever tell them the truth. When every terrible idea you have is met with a standing ovation, you inevitably lose your grip on reality. The level 5 trap is believing that power eliminates the need for connection. But humans are social creatures. Even forces of nature need someone who can see them as more than just their capabilities. Notice that Maleficent is ultimately defeated not by superior power, but by something she doesn't understand: true love's kiss. Level 5s often lose touch with the fundamental human experiences that give life meaning. They become so focused on what they can control that they forget about what they can't control and shouldn't want to. Level 6. The Cosmic Horror, Chernabog. At the very top of the Disney villain hierarchy is Chernabog from Fantasia, a being so powerful that he exists beyond human comprehension. Level 6 isn't really human anymore. These are entities that operate on a completely different scale of existence. They don't want money, status, or even control. They want to reshape the fundamental nature of reality. In the real world, level 6 is theoretical. The people who would have godlike influence over civilization itself. Think beyond any individual leader to the forces that shape entire species. In today's landscape, level 6 isn't a single CEO or a politician. It's a system. It's the invisible architecture of global finance, or the creeping reality of artificial intelligence. These forces don't have malice. They have pure optimization. Chernabog doesn't hate the souls he manipulates on Bald Mountain. They are simply the raw material he works with. Chernabog doesn't have goals in any sense we'd recognize. He simply is. He exists as pure will made manifest. But watch what happens to Chernabog when dawn breaks. The church bells ring, and he simply fades away. Even cosmic horror has limitations. Level 6 power is so abstract that it can't exist in the same space as ordinary human experience. The dawn represents the ultimate equalizer, grounded reality. You can manipulate global systems, but you cannot conquer the simple, unyielding truths of existence, time, mortality, and meaning. When the morning bell tolls, Chernabog is forced back into the mountain. It proves that the higher and more abstract you climb, the more fragile your existence becomes to the simplest elements of normal life. The level 6 lesson isn't about achieving this level. It's about recognizing that there are some heights of power that come at the cost of your humanity entirely. Most people think they want unlimited power, but unlimited power means unlimited isolation from the experiences that make life worth living. The synthesis. Where are you? So now you've seen the complete hierarchy, 7 levels from henchman to cosmic horror. And here's the question that matters. Where are you right now? Most people are stuck at level 1 or 2 their entire lives. They either live in fear of authority, or they become really good at following instructions without developing independent judgment. But once you can see the pattern, you can choose your path consciously instead of just reacting to circumstances. The key insight is that each level requires a fundamentally different mindset. You can't think your way from level 1 to level 4. You have to rebuild your entire approach to power, relationships, and decision-making. Level 1 to level 2 requires developing actual competence at something valuable. Level 2 to level 3 requires understanding politics and long-term strategy. Level 3 to level 4 requires building rather than just capturing. But here's what Disney teaches us that most success advice misses. Each level has its own trap. Success at one level can prevent you from reaching the next level. Kronk is too comfortable being competent to risk learning leadership. Scar is too resentful to build anything constructive. Jafar is too obsessed with power to stay human. The most dangerous place to be is successful at a level that's too small for your actual potential. It breeds a specific kind of quiet, gnawing misery. You become the undisputed ruler of a game you don't even want to play anymore, furiously defending a title that brings you absolutely no real fulfillment. And that's the real lesson of Disney villains. They're not evil because they want power. They're evil because they get stuck in pursuit patterns that made sense at lower levels but become completely destructive at higher levels. Call to action. The Disney villain hierarchy isn't just entertainment, it's a roadmap for conscious development. First, honestly assess where you are right now. Are you living in fear like Pain and Panic? Skilled but directionless like Kronk? Strategic but resentful like Scar? Second, identify what mindset shift is required to reach the next level. Don't just focus on tactics and techniques. Focus on how you need to think differently about power, relationships, and your role in the world. And third, watch out for the trap of your current level. The thing that makes you successful now might be exactly what prevents your next breakthrough. Most people never realize they're living out a villain archetype until it's too late. But you can choose to be the hero of your own story by understanding these patterns and using them consciously.